Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I am your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern. Right here live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone TV, and on shortwave. And through our broadcast affiliate family that spans right across Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, the Pacific Rim, and on Galaxy 4R, Telstar 7, and on TalkStarRadio.com streaming audio. Scott Markus will be with us to discuss Voices from the Chicago Grave. He is a graduate of Columbia College, Chicago, with a degree in producing and writing for television. It was film that introduced Scott Markus to the world of the paranormal. His directional debut came as an 18-year-old shooting a documentary on Resurrection Mary, a Bachelors Grove Cemetery, and other famous Chicago ghost stories. Now, years later, Scott has made movies in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Hawaii on major productions such as Lost, Stranger Than Fiction, and Flags of Our Fathers, to his credit. He has directed a second film, a comedy titled And Introducing Brian, that will come out later this year. Despite all of his film work, he has never strayed far from his passion for ghost stories. He gives speeches on the topic every autumn, and in 2001 he published a book titled Voices from the Chicago Grave on more than 80 Chicago ghost stories. The book includes a CD-ROM containing dozens of video clips and over 1,100 photographs. Scott Markus is our special guest this hour, and Scott, welcome to the X Zone. And how did you get started in paranormal research?
Well, really, quite simply, probably everybody listening, and well, definitely everybody listening, but probably everybody in general, has had a night where you're just sitting around with not much to do, and you start telling ghost stories. And this night, some friends and I, we didn't have much going on, and somehow a ghost story came up. And this was around 9 o'clock at night one night. And next time we kind of came up for air, it was 4 in the morning. I thought, wow. There was a lot of passion in this conversation, and people were very into it. I should look into this a bit more. So I started buying books on the topic, and my main interest is in film and video work. So, once I learned enough, I couldn't just let it stop there, and I made a documentary, and it's kind of taken off since then.
Now, who is Ursula Bielski? I know who she is. We've had her on the show before, but tell our audience who she is.
Ursula has written my favorite ghost story book. Of course, I'm in Chicago, so it's a little regionally biased. But it's called Chicago Haunt, and she's actually written probably 3 other ones also, and has more coming out soon. But she is very, very solid as a writer and as a historian when telling her stories, and that's a big plus. And she is putting together a ghost conference in Chicago last Saturday of October, and you and I will both be appearing there. So, it's going to be a good time. But, Ursula put that all together, and she also leads Chicago Hauntings, a local tour through Haunted Chicago.
And one thing about people who lead haunted tours, they are true historians.
Oh, absolutely. You really have to be. Especially, these are more than just stories. They all come from somewhere.
That's right.
So the story really doesn't, it's not interesting unless you can color it with actual facts from the past.
Now, your book that came out, Voices from the Chicago Grave, can you tell us some of the stories in it?
Oh, well, it covers over 80 Chicagoland area stories, and it's got all the really famous ones, such as Bachelors Grove Cemetery or Resurrection Mary, the very famous phantom hitchhiking ghost. But I was really excited to be able to bring out some new stories that hadn't been seen or hadn't been written about before. And maybe the most thrilling is a place called the Sunnybrook Asylum.
Sunnybrook Asylum.
Which is, it has since been torn down in the name of building more condos, like everything else.
Yeah.
But it started out as a tuberculosis sanitarium, and sometime along its life was an asylum. And there's actually a little bit of speculation. Here's the coloring with history. Some records are not as good as we would hope for them to be. But whatever the case, it's this small facility that has been abandoned for decades. And it's in the middle of this massive field, or it was in the middle of this massive field, surrounded by almost nothing. There's farm fields on 3 sides and a lake on the 4th side. So once you're out there, you are out there. And it hadn't been written about before, and someone came to us telling us that they grew up in the area and their friends would go there, and they would hear a phantom screaming, and they would actually also hear crying coming from within the rooms that they themselves were in. And it was just really fantastic. So we went out there to investigate, and certainly the creepiest place I had ever been. It still is, having been to hundreds. And we, 9 times out of 10, if not more than that, we never experienced anything. We just go out there, take the pictures, do the interviews, and call it a day, not running into anything. But on this occasion, there were phantom footsteps that seemed to follow us. There were just bizarre sounds. We never heard any crying or shouting or anything like that. But there were lots of different bizarre sounds, and just overall really negative feeling, which usually we don't pick up on that type of psychic phenomena where you're actually having an emotion impressed upon you. But I went back a couple of times, and I would always pull that same feeling.
Wow.
And I was in the same area, too. And multiple people would do this. So there was definitely something going on back there. Also, the place was just in shambles, and there were very, very cryptic messages written all over the place. If we catch you here, you'll die. Probably just kids screwing around, but at the same time, you don't really know. And you're very isolated, so it was unnerving.
So that's not the kind of place you'd like to be in during a heavy thunder and lightning.
Yeah, the roofs are caving in as it is. No. There's no need to amplify it.
Tell me, while you were in there experiencing that paranormal activity, did you have the feeling as if you were being watched or you weren't alone in the rooms where you went?
The best way I would describe it, there's the main institution building and then 2 caretakers' homes. We'd go through the institution building and go through one of the homes, no problem. But it was always walking up to that last caretaker's house. And the way I describe it is when you were in grade school and you were talking during class and the teacher yelled at you, really yelled at you, said, if I catch you doing something wrong one more time, you're in for it, big trouble. And naturally you would. And it's that feeling where you know you were caught and the world was about to come down on you. It was really just, that feeling of being guilty and bad times were about to come. It was very bizarre, and I felt that on my first time, and we didn't even get to the house, and we just turned around right away. And the next time I came out broad daylight with a photographer, somebody that wasn't there the first time, and I started to get that feeling again, but I bit my tongue because I need to get these pictures. And as soon as we stepped into the house, she just turned to me and said, Scott, do you get the feeling that we're really, really not supposed to be here? I said, that's all I need to hear. We'll come back again later. And, so she picked up on it, too. It was bizarre.
Did you ever go back?
Yes, we did. We went back, got the pictures. It was never as strong as that, but there was always kind of something in the air. And, again, that I rarely ever pick up on anything kind of that psychic variety like that.
But it was that strong.
Oh, it was very, very strong. That's unparalleled. I haven't come across that anywhere else. And, now there are new, moderately priced homes in the area that someone can actually live on the same foundations.
What do you think a ghost is? And why do you think these spirits, these ghosts, these entities hang around after death?
Well, I think that's where maybe a lot of people get into trouble, is trying to find one definition for everything that goes on. And there are, in my opinion, and of course this is what makes it fun, is that everybody has theories, and they're more or less one's just as valid as the next, because nothing is really solidly proven, nor will it be, most likely. But there's always almost a typical Hollywood one, a death, and the death is gone unavenged. Someone has unfinished business. And I believe that is legitimate. I believe that does happen. I think that's not the most common. I think the most common would be a residual haunting, where an event is being played out repeatedly. And it's not dependent on anything. It's not like their souls are there going through this event over and over again. But more so, something happened there. An impression was left on the area. And people who just, for whatever reason, happen to be on that same wavelength are able to witness this thing going on.
Do you think
I think that's probably the most common.
Would the way a person died have anything to do with the residual effect of the spirit that remains to haunt?
Well, certainly, as far as the residual hauntings go, certainly there would be a higher likelihood. The Eastland disaster in Chicago is 1903, or 1904, a steamliner full of people rolled over in the Chicago River, killing, some accounts say, close to 1,000 people. Now, the residual hauntings that happen there are screams and faces that are seen in the water. Obviously, this is a massive tragedy, so you have all of these people that it could be stemming from them.
Mm-hmm.
But, I theorize that there are all these people also on the bridge that are witnessing this. So what people may be experiencing aren't coming from those who died there, but maybe even someone who observed this, and you're actually being able to see their memory because they themselves are the ones leaving that very strong impact. So there's a lot of, I don't know, I love this stuff.
I can tell. Now, what was your inspiration for your book, Voices from the Chicago Grave?
Well, when I did the documentary, we got to go very in-depth on about 8 stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, very fascinating. But 8 stories out of this massive city of Chicago. It started to just kill me that I kept coming across other great stories that hadn't been told, or that I just wanted to greedily investigate myself. So, film is limited, video is limited, in that you only have someone's attention for so long. Someone's not going to sit down for 6 hours to watch your Ken Burns epic. Even then, you wouldn't cover as much as you'd like to. But in a book, you could really go in depth, and that's basically where that came from. It was now we can go in, tell more than just the most famous stories, come across some new ones. And I was also very excited, at the time, this was a couple of years ago, to think, I will package this book with a CD-ROM, so that people reading the book, I always hate it when I'm reading a book and then I go and visit the place and it's nothing like I pictured it. But now with the CD-ROM, people can read the chapter and then put in the CD-ROM and take a look at. We have over 1,000 pictures on the CD-ROM and a bunch of different video clips.
Scott Markus is our special guest, X-Zone Nation. And if you'd like to find out about Markus, his website is www.slimpictures.com. That's www.slimpictures.com, where Scott Markus is the executive producer. Welcome back, everyone. Scott Markus is our very special guest. And we're talking about his book, Voices from the Chicago Grave. And we're also now going to be talking about a paranormal conference that's going to be held in Chicago the last the last weekend of the month?
Yes, last Saturday, October 27th.
All right, tell our listeners about the conference.
As we said earlier, Ursula Bielski has put it together, a very respected ghost writer. And it'll be an all-day long event on Saturday, featuring a number of guests from across the country and apparently into Canada also. Mm-hmm. And we have vendors selling all sorts of stuff, but mostly it's all speakers. And then at the end of the night, there will be a tour going to a couple of different haunted places in Chicago led by Ursula. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Where's the most haunted place in Chicago?
Ooh, there's a good one for debate. The very popular answer is Bachelors Grove Cemetery. It's in the south suburbs, and it was a cemetery that was just kind of a beautiful park-like place to go until eventually progress came in, and in order to widen the road near it, they actually had to divert it entirely, which blocked this cemetery off, just kind of leaving it stranded in the woods. And once it was stranded back there, basically anybody could come in and do whatever they wanted. So it was desecrated extensively. There's rumors of bodies being dumped in the pond nearby during Capone's day. And I mean, even if you were to go there now and go back a week later, you would see just more defacement within that time. Unfortunately, it's ongoing, although they're doing a lot to try to keep it, out. And also there's the Bachelors Grove Restoration Project is in effect. But yeah, there's, I guess, over 100 sightings that have been actually reported there.
Are there a lot of ghosts in Chicago, speaking about Al Capone, that Mr. Capone tried to put into the spirit world?
There's a handful of mafia ghosts, and actually we will be, during this conference, the tour will go to a place called Frankie's, which was an old place owned by the Capone mob, not Capone himself, although he did hold an office there. And if you were to go there today, there's one room where you can actually sit at the desk that was in Capone's office and sit in his chairs, and there's a portrait of his aunt that's on the wall. And that's a place that's haunted. Top floor was a brothel. Middle floor was a speakeasy, and the basement was a casino. And there were also underground tunnels that serviced one other bar, and then that exited out to a channel so they could load liquor to and from ships.
It seems that some cities really retain their ghost heritage, and other cities want to forget it. Any idea why?
Yeah, it is. I think it's just kind of on a city-by-city basis what the mentality is towards it. I found it very interesting. The last 4 years I've been living in Hawaii for half the year, and even compared to Chicago, Hawaii is much more open and accepting of the spirit world, where I saw a news segment in Hawaii about why they can't rent out the old Xerox building, and it's because there was a massacre there, I think in the mid-90s. And they openly said one of the main reasons people won't rent it is because it's haunted. And you wouldn't see that in Chicago even. Probably most places to have a very respected newspaper, a news anchor, the straight face, admit that someplace is haunted. There's still a stigma, unfortunately.
Do the city fathers in Chicago approve of the haunted reputation that it's getting?
That's a really tough call. I know they absolutely hate the mafia reputation. They go out of their way to destroy any landmark that has a mafia connotation with it, such as the site of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre was destroyed. But yeah, I think basically it's gotten too big to ignore. So I think more or less they are accepting of it, and even the different haunted places around are just kind of embracing it more instead of shunning the attention away. They've kind of accepted it a bit. So I think it is becoming a bit more mainstream, and I'm sure even the city is okay with it becoming more touristy in that sense. Why
do ghosts haunt graveyards? Apparently, ghost hunters, paranormal researchers love to hang around graveyards to try and catch that all elusive proof that ghosts are real.
That is probably the $64,000 question. That is a tough one because of the thought process is if you were able to come back and go anywhere, why in the world would you stay next to your grave? And yeah, it's tough. There's the obvious ones, such as if there's grave desecration, there could be spirits that are almost kind of keeping a lookout on their own. Outside of that, I can't answer the question. I can't even speculate. it's kind of difficult. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
In your experience, what is the most solid evidence for proof of the afterlife?
I believe it's when multiple people are able to witness the same thing. Resurrection Mary, I've mentioned before, and she lives on Archer Avenue, or inhabits Archer Avenue, and the conference tour is going to investigate her and look around there. But one of the more famous cases, one of the more shocking almost, things that she does is appear in traffic in front of people. And according to story, and obviously I didn't see this, so I can't vouch for it, but it's been said that people have struck her, actually seen her body fly over the car. You know, everybody's believing that this is a real person. And the body didn't vanish until paramedics were actually there and went to take her pulse. So this is obviously witnessed by many people at the same time. They all saw the same thing. They didn't know each other. They didn't have any preconceived notion that they were about to see something like this. I think that holds a lot of water. When it comes to me doing interviews, stuff like that really stands out to me.